Hello. Today is December 17th, 2021. Ugh, wow. Okay. See, the problem with doing something like that right at the beginning of one of these videos is that I have to get it right on the first take. There's no going back and doing that again. That was one of my problems with one of those episodes in the past where I was trying to smoke a joint right at the beginning. Is that if I mess it up, I have to restart the video. And, well, that can cause some problems. So anyway, I hope you're ready to be engaged as fuck. Because I just consumed one Red Bull's can worth of a psychoactive substance known as caffeine. So, the one drug that we seem to really like in this country. Or at least one of the drugs. One of the movies I really like is a movie called Birdman. Came out in 2015. And it didn't win the Oscar. It might have won the Best Picture award. I don't remember. But in my opinion, or at least from my understanding of movies and art of that kind, it is in a category of filmmaking called super realism. I don't know how to describe what super realism is, other than just suggesting you watch the movie. It's a movie where the characters in the movie are played by actors. The characters sort of reflect the lives of the actors. It's a super realistic movie, super realism. That's kind of how I see it. And I sort of wonder about... There's also a show that I really like called Dave. It's Little Dicky's, the rapper, the white Jewish rapper. His first season of the TV show he made, in my opinion, is another example of this category called super realism. And I might be completely making up this category in my head. Maybe I have the vocab wrong. Maybe super realism isn't the right word, but I think there's something about capturing a certain idea of it's like creating a story that is authentic in some way. I didn't have a plan for after that Red Bull. All I knew was I was going to drink that Red Bull and then I was going to start talking. How long do you think it takes for caffeine to kick in? That's another question. Doesn't it take about half an hour? I've gotten in arguments with people about this quite frequently over alcohol, drugs, caffeine. How long does it take for it to kick in? I used to have this friend in college who had this gigantic bong, and he would take a big rip from the bong, and then he'd sit there and go, and he'd be like, oh, I'm high, like right now. And I'd always ask him, like, how do you know? How do you know that you're experiencing the effects of THC within seconds of taking this bong hit that you've just done? It seems to me that consuming THC through something like a bong automatically deprives your brain of oxygen just for at least one breath, because you're just inhaling all of this smoke. And it's kind of a strangely large breath that it's the effects of that moment of oxygen deprivation might be what you're feeling. It seems to me that when you inhale THC, it has to get into your lungs, and then from there it has to go into your bloodstream, and then from there it gets to your brain. So you can't feel the effects of the chemical until it gets from air to lungs to brain. So it can't happen immediately is what I'm saying. And the same thing goes for alcohol and caffeine. I mean, you have to consume it, it gets into your stomach, it has to get absorbed through the stomach or the intestines into your bloodstream, and then it gets to your brain. They're all psychoactive. I think alcohol counts as psychoactive. I don't know. I don't know what that one counts as. But anyway. I've been getting better at being engaging, according to my YouTube analytics data. What it takes is being interesting right away. It's not something I was focused on in my earlier videos. I wasn't starting out talking about something. I would start out with something slow, like the weather or just what I was doing today or something. What I have to do is just start out right away with interesting conversations, and then I go forward from there. I'm trying to get my room set up, which I've said 1,000 times, so that I can call my brother and start including him, and then it'll be me talking to him, which I think will make this more interesting. I also have a list of subjects that I've written down that I can go through. You know, if somebody has a suggestion for a topic, I'd love a suggestion. So far, I've only had one suggestion, and it was porn, and I talked about it. I could probably talk about it more, but I've already talked about masturbation a couple times, so. You know, one time in high school, I went to a Christian high school from sophomore year to senior year. So for 3 years, I went to a Catholic Christian high school. And we had somebody come in and give us an assembly. You know, they had all the kids sit in an auditorium. We had this guy come in and give us a lecture about masturbation and why it was bad and how we were going to die from doing it. I don't remember what he said. There was that. And then the other one that came up, the other assembly that we had, which I think is more interesting to talk about, was an abortion assembly. So they had all the kids in the auditorium, you know, Christian high school. We're all sitting there. It's an all-guys high school, by the way. So I could talk about that for some amount of time. I don't think you should send your kids to an all-guys high school. Well, I don't know. I could go back and forth on that. But the point is, they gave us an abortion talk, where they had a guy come in and talk to us about abortion and how abortion was bad. And that was actually one of the times that I got punched in school. Because I was, of course, the outspoken atheist kid. Punk-ass atheist kid. I was probably 16 or 17. It was right after this abortion talk. We just sat in the auditorium for an hour and listened to how, I don't know, Jesus or God doesn't approve of abortion. And I remember just arguing against it, because that's what I did. Argued against this stuff all the time, and I have this very, very vivid memory of standing outside of the auditorium. There's this place where I used to eat lunch, because we had lunchtime right afterwards, and then I was just standing there, actually surrounded by a semicircle of people. I don't remember how many, 6 or 7, maybe more. And I was looking at all of them, arguing with all of them, like at the same time, about abortion. And of course, once you start talking about abortion, you're talking about the soul, talking about God. So it was an argument about all of things, right? An argument about everything: the Bible, abortion, God, all that stuff. And it was me surrounded by some of my classmates who were arguing and yelling at me. And one of them punched me in the stomach. He like walked up and just sucker punched me in the stomach. And, well, then he walked away. And I don't know what I did. I just sort of just accepted it, I guess. I just kind of got punched and I went, well, all right. Didn't really hurt that bad. I'm not the type to react to something like that. Or I wasn't back then. I think now I would react differently. But back then I was very much... I wouldn't react to things like that. I would just... What I should have done is fought the guy in that moment. But I did not. I mean, of course, it would have been like 6-on-1. But I don't know, in my own head, back then at least, it was always better to be in control of your emotions. So if something like that happened, it would only be bad if I reacted. It's better to simply exist and let the universe exist around you. And I was truly making these people upset. It's not like I wasn't asking for it, I could have just not said anything. I could have just not argued about abortion and said that, hey, maybe, it's funny, maybe my stance has changed a little bit now, but back then I would have been saying, well, I already know what the argument would have been back then. It would have been the same as any other any other pro-choice argument. Yeah, I noticed that I've actually stopped arguing about abortion because it's just so intense. The argument over abortion is fiery. And I mean, like, truly, like, I'll argue about anything, but I think I'm done arguing about abortion. And I hate to say that I take this stance because I think it's kind of lame, but I almost feel like I'll just let the women argue about it, And if I impregnate a girl and she's pro-choice and she chooses to keep the baby and I don't want to, then I'm not paying for it. I feel like that's the trade-off. If you want the ability, if you want the right, if you want pro-choice, then that means that the guy is now off the hook if you choose to keep the baby. Like, that should be the trade. Like, men don't get to decide whether the baby exists or not. But if you're going to decide that the baby does exist, then you don't have to pay. Then the guy doesn't have to pay if he doesn't want to. I don't know if I phrased that correctly. It's either that or you have to be pro-life, and then, yes, the guy does have to pay if he impregnates you. I don't know. Things get weird with reproductive technology. Because it's like, if you're in control of whether a baby can exist or not, then whose problem is it when the baby does exist? And part of me wants to say, of course the guy should pay, but part of me wants to say, if you're a pro-choice woman, if you're obsessed with all of these rights and you want to have control over whether you're pregnant or not, and then you get pregnant and then the guy doesn't want it but you do, and then you kind of force the guy to pay for it. I don't know. Never mind. I can't talk about abortion because it doesn't. Louis C.K. is my answer to abortion. He has the best breakdown on abortion that I've ever heard. I'll put a link in the description if I remember to the skit where he talks about abortion. It's in one of my playlists. I have YouTube playlists saved, and it's under funny. Louis C.K. on abortion. It's the best breakdown. Best breakdown on abortion that there is. That I've seen. Basically, the argument is that naturally women are kind of the selectors of who gets to move on to the next generation. So really, the way that I used to think about it, even before listening to Louis C.K., is like, some animals will kill their babies like 3 years into it. So I think, really, if you're going to support abortion, you should go all the way and support it like 2 or 3 years into the life. Until that baby learns how to talk, you can abort it. Like, that seems like a reasonable... I'm going to get in trouble for saying that, but... if you're going to... Like, what's the difference between the baby inside the woman and outside the woman? If you're going to draw a line at the moment that it exits a vagina, like, that's still an arbitrary line. So, no matter where you draw the line, it's arbitrary. Honestly, you're going to pick a spot between single cell and multi-cell. At what point does this thing become alive? At what point does it have a soul? The soul doesn't exist, so you can kill it when it's 5 years old, right? What's the difference? So, that's why I think when it starts talking, that's when you should stop. Anyway, on a completely different note, I'm going to change the subject. That guy who punched me apologized years later. I was at a party. This is like second year of college. I was back home. Some party where high school friends were showing up, and he came up to me and he goes, "Matt, I have to apologize." And then he said these words. He says, "Reddit turned me into an atheist." And then he apologized to me. I was like, wow, what a turn of events. I was known as the demon seed in that school. Widely known. Widely known. A lot of religion classes, because we had required theology classes at that school. Required theology classes. And it's funny, even to a school full of Christians and Catholics and things like that, religion class was very boring, right? It was just, here's a chapter of the Bible, here's some, you just learn some ancient history combined with some study of scripture and the texts and things, and it's very boring, really, until you put somebody like me in the room, and then it gets at least engaging, because I would just sit there and argue all day. All the time. All I would do was just point out every single thing that was wrong with everything. I was annoying, but I was also a teenage atheist. So, I don't know. I was that kid. I was that person for years. From sophomore year, the very first day of class. This was a new high school. Everybody already knew each other from freshman year, but I had just moved to this place. So it was my first day of high school. I didn't know a single person in the whole school. Everybody else already had friends. First day of high school, everybody's meeting back up going, yo, what's up, guys? And it's just me by myself. I get handed a piece of paper on my second class of the day, theology class. And you have to write a little essay. It's like write an essay given a prompt. And the prompt was, how has Jesus affected your life? And so, in that moment, sitting in that chair at the age of probably 14 or 15, that is when I became an atheist. It was that day, in that moment. I still remember it. Looking down at that piece of paper, I had never thought about it until that point. It had never been a question for me whether God existed, whether Jesus existed. None of that was ever a thought on my mind. It was like my parents were sort of they were doing the classic boomer thing of raising their kids vaguely religious. If I asked my mom, she'd be like, yeah, we're Protestant or whatever. But we never went to church or anything. Once in a while I would accidentally run into a church, I guess. I don't know what it was, but on that day, first day of sophomore year, high school, handed a piece of paper, how has Jesus affected your life? Looking down at that prompt, it all just went through my head in that moment. I went oh, there is no God. In that moment, that's when I decided there was no God. And I wrote that down. And that started it. That started everything. Because I write that down. Teacher goes, excuse me, Mr. Denny. Can we talk about this? And of course, the whole class are like, who's this new kid? What's he writing on his thing? And then so the teacher asked me about it. And I just said what I thought. I go, oh yeah, Jesus is just a guy in a book. God is just a thing, and boom, instantly known as the atheist kid, day one. So of course, that it's not like that was that exciting, it's not like that just spread around the school or anything, but it started a conversation with the teacher that lasted all year. And then that conversation, every person in that classroom was subject to that conversation, and then that spread. And then there's other teachers who try to convince me. There was priests that would walk up to me and try and talk to me about this stuff. And it just got worse. I just kept arguing every time with everybody. The next year, I was in another theology class with another teacher. And then the year after that, senior year was the worst, because that's where I had my full confidence. Senior year was where, after I'd been accepted into Davis, I was like, fuck this place. I don't need to do anything here now. So I was like, my theology class senior year was literally kids on their phones, nobody doing a single goddamn thing other than me arguing with the teacher every day. It was every other day, because it was a block period class system. It was the end of the day, had this teacher, and we went through different philosophers and different religious leaders and why different arguments for God and how you would argue this way or that. And I would just sit there and argue with the guy, and it was fun. I had a good time with it. But I was known as the demon seed. That was a lot of people. I don't know, if you ask my classmates from back then, I wonder if they would remember. It was obviously a bigger deal to me than it was to other people, but they tested me for drugs, which I think is funny. I got pulled out of class and I was put in, I was a nerdy kid. I was in the robotics club. I helped start the robotics club. I did all the nerdy stuff, and I was in all the advanced classes. I was in all the AP classes, all that stuff. I was like up there competing with the other kids to be like the best in the class, right? Trying to. There were some kids there that were studying a lot harder than I was, but they went to other colleges, I guess. I don't know, but it's funny. They pulled me out to put me in this little group to test for drugs, and so I'm sitting there on this bench with like 3 or 4 other kids, and they're like the punks of the school, and then there's me, the nerdy kid, but I'm an atheist, so I must clearly be on drugs. And yeah, they tested me and I passed. I was not doing any drugs, despite their suspicions. And then senior year of high school, so this was the big dramatic event. This was the worst thing that happened to me at that school. I was in an English class with Mr. Scott. I hope someday he sees this video and he knows that I still remember. English teacher, very religious, very religious. He was the type of guy, he did come to where I was eating lunch with my friends, lunchtime, pull me out of the circle, bring me aside simply to argue with me about the existence of God. This guy, he's a 50-something-year-old dude, grabbing me, at the time 17 years old, pulling me aside, trying to convince me that God exists. All the time. And so we had to do this project in English class. It had to be a handwritten project. It had to be written in pen, on paper, handwritten. We had to write, it was some number, it was like several pages. It was like 4 or 5 pages stapled together. It had to be handwritten. It was a kind of a writing project. And, it was the big end of the year project worth 30% of the grade. It was a huge deal. And, everybody was turning it in at various times. You kind of you get it done, you turn it in. There was a due date. I turned mine in a week or 2 before it was due. And, of course, I turned it in. Probably after class at some point, I give it to him. This piece of paper, right? Several pieces of paper stapled together, handwritten in ink. I turned it in, and I did not make copies, which was a foolish mistake. A foolish mistake, because the next day, he's reading out the list of people who have turned it in, and my name is not on the list. Apparently, I have not turned it in. So I went to him after class, and I said, "Yo, Mr. Scott, I gave you that piece of paper." And he goes, "Did you?" I was like, "Yes, I did. I did. I gave it to you. It took me a long ass time to do, and I gave it to you." And then he goes, "Oh, I'll look around for it." And then, so yeah, next day rolls around, or some number of days later rolls around. He does it again. He reads out the list. I'm not on it. And I go, "Hey, Mr. Scott, I really gave you that thing." And he looks at me in the eyes and he goes, "Mr. Denny, if you had more faith, perhaps I could have more faith in you." Oof, I still remember that moment. "Mr. Denny, if you had more faith, perhaps I could have more faith in you." He didn't believe that I had turned it in. He thought I was lying to him. This is a project worth 30% of my grade, English class. I can't redo it. It's handwritten. It's a handwritten thing. He wanted it to be handwritten. He required it to be handwritten in pen, on paper. I should have made copies. I was an idiot to not make copies, but I didn't make copies of it. And I gave it to him, and it was the only copy. And he held that over my head. I would ask him, "Did you find it yet? Did you find it yet?" And the year is getting closer to the end, right? Like, this is like, basically I'm going to fail this class if he doesn't find this thing. And then like the second to last day, he stops me after class and he goes, "Oh, Mr. Denny, I found your paper." No apology. He just says, "Oh, I found it." No apology. No apology. Nothing like that. He found it. He just happened to find it. It just mysteriously was non-existent until he found it, second to last day. That pissed me off. That pissed me off to a great extent. That made me really upset. There's only one reason why I did not exact vengeance. Because I had nothing to lose at that point. I was already in college, accepted to college. It was the end of my senior year, and I was thinking, what havoc could I place upon this man? But my younger brother was going to go to that school. He was lined up to enter that school in the next year, so I couldn't do anything too bad. He already had a tough enough time when he came in because he was the younger brother of the demon seed. And that was already there ahead of him, the reputation that I had placed down already was bad enough, so I couldn't do anything to this guy. Although I fantasized about it, I was upset at him. Imagine being a 17, 18-year-old kid, you know, and you got this guy. He's like older than 50. He's like a married guy. Old, you know, he's an adult human being, and he's clearly just like torturing me over the fact that I'm an atheist. Clearly. I think it's amazing that now if I were to talk to him, the conversation would be different, but all those people in all those classes, all those teachers, priests, none of them could convince me that God exists. None of them. And then I watched a clinical psychologist, a Harvard lecturer on YouTube named Jordan Peterson, and he convinced me. So, yeah, and that's that story. That's that story. So, that school had some problems. I had another teacher senior year physics class, Mr. Adamson. He was Jewish in a Christian high school, and this is relevant. This is relevant because he was a physics teacher, and he was probably one of the best teachers that I ever had. There was about 3 teachers there that I thought they were really good, and he was one of them. He taught physics to me in at least a way that I understood, that I really got. He taught it to me so well, physics, the basics of physics at least, and mechanics and things like that, that my first 2 classes in college that I took on physics, because I got to skip one of them and then I had to take 2 more. I got A+ on both of them, like with my eyes closed. It was amazing. I was like, I breezed through those 2 classes, and it was completely because of this high school teacher. The way that he taught physics to me. And there was like me and like 3 other people that sort of got it. And we would stay after class and we'd hang out with him. He was part of the robotics club. He was like one of the advisors. And so, you know, there was like the in crowd of nerds. And he was like, we loved him because he was the physics teacher. He showed us a Doctor Who episode one day. Blink, if you've ever seen Blink, Doctor Who episode. Best episode. Highly recommend. What was it called? Don't Blink. I don't remember. But season 3 episode something like that, maybe season 2, but either way, he was a great teacher. He was teaching us physics, but the problem is that he was a strict teacher. He was tough. He wouldn't give you free A+. You had to actually understand the concepts, and he was teaching us physics, right? And so this is stuff you either get or you don't. Some of the concepts are abstract, some of them are hard to understand. You know, it's not like it doesn't just come naturally to everybody. And so here's the story of Jeremy Adamson at this high school. I shouldn't have said his full name out loud. Oh, it's too late now. Mr. Adamson, you were one of the best teachers I ever had. So what happened was, and I think that this is a conspiracy theory, really. I mean, from my perspective in this high school. So he didn't give out free A's. And the valedictorian of the school, who was in my grade, the valedictorian of the class, had some rich parents who were contributors to the school. It's a private school, right? So having rich parents who contribute to the school, having a son who is the valedictorian, that's, you know, like I said, this is a conspiracy theory. This kid could not get an A in this class. This valedictorian was having trouble getting an A in this class. And I believe this is part of the reason that this teacher was fired. He was fired. About 75% of the way into the year, he was fired. He just disappeared one day, and they replaced him with a substitute teacher which is garbage. Like, basically for the last 2 months of school, we didn't learn anything. And me and 3 other kids had to teach ourselves the rest of the concepts from the textbook to take the AP test. And I remember, well, it was a bunch of nonsense, basically. A bunch of nonsense. What happened was some kid in one of the dumber classes did something a little bit ridiculous, and Adamson didn't deal with it properly. How could he? I don't want to get into the details of it, but basically Adamson had something pinned on him that wasn't really his fault. He wasn't the best teacher at he wasn't the best at dealing with, he was teaching high school classes, and my class was full of all the nerds because we were like the AP class, but then there was the dumb classes that had to come in. And one of the dumb kids in one of the dumb classes got that teacher fired for doing a dumb thing that he didn't respond to well enough. And it was his first year teaching at this school. He was Jewish, so he didn't fit in already. And the AP, the valedictorian kid had pressure on him. There was a lot of reasons all tied up, but he was fired one day. It was terrible. It was awful. It was awful. It was a major loss. I mean, it was senior year of high school. I was almost out of there anyway, but it was really sad. But really, only me and like one other person really cared, like really, really cared. And I didn't have any. Nobody's gonna listen to me. Nobody's gonna be like, "Oh, the atheist kid wants the physics teacher back." Nobody's going to listen to me. So. Yeah, there was that. He got fired. But he taught me physics so well. Like, I had such a good understanding of physics because of that guy that I passed 2 college courses. Like, truly, easily. Like, I didn't have to study or anything. Like, I came into the class. I should have been able to skip those classes, honestly. Like, I didn't have to go to any of the lectures. We were doing these physics labs, and I could just breeze through all of them easily. And I completely owe it to this one physics teacher. So... he was great. English teacher was bad. That's how this worked. All right, that's physics. Now biology. So I had a bio teacher senior year who was okay. He was just an all right bio teacher. But here's what's funny, is that we eventually hit the section called evolution, right? This is a senior year class. We're learning about biology. We hit the evolution section. And of course, this was the section I nailed. I knew everything about this already because I've been arguing about it for 2.5 years up to that point. And I remember this one kid coming up to me. So this is funny. What was his name? His name was... I don't want to say his name. I got to stop saying names out loud. He came up to me. This was before senior year. I remember, like, there was this thing that happened where I'd be at a place at lunchtime. There was a place where I would hang out. And that was like, if you wanted to go argue with the atheist, that's where the atheist was. And this kid comes up to me confidently, right? We weren't really friends. I knew who he was. It's not like we weren't friends. We were friendly. And he had a look in his eyes like he had something, right? Like he was about to destroy me. And he goes, "Bees. How do you explain bees? How does evolution explain bees?" Right? Because, he's saying bees work together. How can they possibly work together if evolution requires that it's every man for themselves kind of thing, right? So, I'll never forget that. He thought he had me. He thought since he had discovered bees that he could now disprove all of Darwin's theory. And that was a fun conversation. But anyway, the senior year of class, I ended up hanging out with him and we studied evolution together. So it turns out you can believe in Christianity and evolution at the same time. It turns out that these are not mutually exclusive concepts. It's very strange to me that people fight against it so much. Well, it's not that strange. But, I have a neighbor that I hang out with down the street. He's 60 years old. He's older. And he's extremely, if you're talking about Bible thumper, he's a Bible thumper. Like, he has shown me the Bible. There's a thump mark on the Bible where he thumps it. He's a thumper. He thinks dinosaurs were invented by scientists who are trying to trick everybody into some globalist conspiracy. So this is a guy who truly does not believe in evolution. And, at the core of the concept, it's really not a controversial idea. If you have a bunch of beetles in a forest, and some of them are red and some of them are green, the birds are going to be able to see the red ones more easily, so they're going to eat the red ones, and only the green ones are going to be left. So the green ones will survive and pass on their genes, and so the whole population will be green. And, that's like, how can that, it's one of those things that's so obvious. It's the same thing to me as UBI. It's like, how did people not know this before Darwin? It almost feels like I can't imagine not knowing it, right? I can't imagine walking around the woods and not knowing where these trees came from, right? Like, it's weird for me to imagine the universe having any other understanding. How can I possibly sit here and think like, okay, God made all this? Like some super intelligent creator snapped their fingers and then everything was here. You can't even do that. You can't. Even if you believe the universe was created 10 years ago by a super intelligent being, you can still see signs of evolution happening currently. Like, things are still changing and evolving constantly. It's just weird. It's just weird. Anyway, senior year of high school, I ended up knowing what I was talking about with evolution. I remember sitting there in class, like, answering questions from some of my classmates. And, you know, these aren't hard questions. It's just like convergent evolution, divergent evolution, genetic drift, the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. What are the 4 requirements for that? There's, you know what happened? There's all these little terms. I don't remember it now off the top of my head, but yeah, this is all my experience in this high school that I just ended up talking about. I didn't know I was going to talk about this. Seems like our culture, seems like the human race is adjusting and going through growing pains in relationship to the technological changes that are happening. It seems to me that a large part of this whole red versus blue conflict, the social media isolated echo chambers are, you know, we've never had this technology and we're having a virtual accident right now. This is like the first example of a virtual accident. We've done something by accident. We've set up a system, and as usual, we do things without thinking. We do things without wisdom, and now we've created a society where it seems like extremism is on the rise, right? That's what it seems like. And to me, if it seems like, if I'm looking at this optimistically, if I think about this like realistically, optimistically and realistically, what is really going to happen? Are we really going to have some sort of civil war, country collapse, like globalist takeover, China war, like, you know, authoritarian thing going on here? Like, are we really going to run into something like that where it's like there's going to be helicopters flying overhead, we're all going to be like living under the thumb of some sort of semi-technocratic authoritarian dictator, or like the Trump regime or something, right? Is that really going to happen? That seems unlikely. It seems more likely that we will kind of continue down the path of red versus blue. Something dramatic will happen in 2024, and then we're going to learn. We're going to like grow out of it. I think that this whole woke thing, we're going to be in a post-woke era where people aren't going to get in trouble for saying transphobic things anymore. We're going to be in an era where we're just going to calm down, right? There's going to be like the great calming down that will happen. And I just think what's happening right now is we're just like in the teenager stage of the internet. We're just in this like angsty, rebellious, angry, dramatic stage where the internet and where this technology is just turning us into extremists. And it's going to get to this point where something was going to happen. There's going to have to be like an awakening moment, I think. Because I mean, I don't know. I can't see the whole elephant. I think that's another problem, is that nobody really knows what's going on. Nobody knows what the fuck is going on. Nobody. Nobody. I went back and listened to Bo Burnham's first song on Inside. And there's one line in that song where he just says, "What the fuck is going on?" And I think that's actually it. I don't think anybody truly knows what is going on. There's just so many levels of, there's so many layers of this, of like the world, right? Of society at this point. We're all interconnected. And there's so many political structures and social structures, and there's so many storylines, so many narratives, and there's like companies and corporations that are gigantic. There's these like powerful players that we know about, like Amazon, you know, Google, Facebook. These are powerful players that we are aware of, but we don't know everything they're doing. And then there's powerful players we've never even heard of. BlackRock, for example, has like $9 trillion. They have like control of assets worth $9 trillion. And it's like, if I've learned anything from Monopoly, it's that once you have that much, you're going to get more. You know, those who have, more will come. Matthew principle. To those who have, more will come. So there's just these powerful players who have all these resources and money. Nobody knows what's going on. Everybody who thinks they have an idea of what's going on is wrong. Nobody knows. Nobody. Even these guys, even the most powerful person on the planet, whoever it is, the richest person, whoever it is, it's not Jeff Bezos. Whoever's the richest person on the planet, it's not Elon Musk either. It's somebody whose name you don't know. That's who the richest person is. Whoever has the most power, whoever has the most influence, like truly, not even they know what's going on, because they're in a position where it's like something could happen somewhere where they're not aware of. They could change everything. Like the Emperor trying to take over. Not even Emperor Palpatine was aware of the Ewoks. You know, the most evil, powerful person in the entire galaxy who can influence the minds of entire planets did not know that a bunch of teddy bears on a planet were going to ruin his entire plan. And I think that concept just applies to, like, there's little things happening everywhere. There's something happening in a garage somewhere that is going to just change the entire world, and none of us know that it's there. Right? Like there's things happening inside small groups. And it's funny because I think that if you look back at history, at things like the Russian Revolution, at things like anytime there's dramatic social change that we read about 50 years later, probably what was actually happening at the time was that most people were not aware of that change. When we look back, we think like, okay, there was a Marxist takeover, a communist revolution in Russia. But it's like, if you were interviewing a random person in the country at that time, would they have even known anything about that? Right? Would they be like, yeah, of course, like Karl Marx is over there writing a thing and Lenin's about to do this, and it's like, did they know about that? Or were they just kind of living their lives under completely different narratives? Were they paying attention to something totally different? Like, all of the stuff that we're paying attention to right now with Black Lives Matter, with Trump, with Biden, global warming, the virus, how much of this is just like narratives that are just kind of gonna just be meaningless at some point? And how much of what's actually happening right now is truly influential and consequential? Like, if you think about it, just thinking about Tesla, Elon Musk, just as an easy example here. Tesla is one of the most influential car companies to ever exist. It's changing the entire landscape of car companies. 20 years ago, though, nobody could have convinced you that this was true. Nobody. It was unpredictable, really. There's some people who knew it was true. Some people who thought it was true. But truly, it was like a tiny group of people, less than 1% of the human population, was involved or knew the consequences of what was about to happen with Tesla. And now, 20 years later, it seems obvious. So now, when the historians are writing about it, they're going to be like, yeah, of course Tesla was like that, right? It's like, it's obvious in retrospect. But there's things that, like, what is happening right now? What tiny group of people right now are doing something that 20 years down the line is going to be the thing that everybody knew was obvious, right? That everybody's gonna be like, of course this is what happened. And so this is something I think about quite a bit. It's like the, if you want to make money, like I said in my video about heterodoxy, if you want to actually make money, you need to find that group of people and put your money where their mouths are. You need to put your money down on something. You're not going to be a rich person if you don't invest. You will never be a rich person if you just work and just get a salary or just an hourly paycheck. You will never be a rich person. You have to invest. You have to. If you're just making money through a paycheck, you will never, ever be a rich person. That's what I think. I mean, it depends on how you define rich, but you got to put your money down on things that are going to multiply your money. You got to make your money make money. That's how you become rich. So if you really want to do that well, there's two ways to do that. You can just do the safe method where you just put it down in the S&P, 80% down S&P, 20% down government bonds, Make sure to keep that 80-20 about balanced. And then assuming that the country doesn't have a financial crash, you'll make money over a 30-year time span, right? But if you just want to beat inflation, that's how you do it. Assuming inflation doesn't get out of control. That seems like a problem now, but if you really truly want to make money, if you want to get that like 5, 10x, you know, you have to put your money down on risky places. You have to put your money down where most people are not putting their money down. So the way to do that is to find the group of people, find the thing, the idea, the concept, find that thing that's going to change the future. So in the year 2001, you should have put your money down on electric vehicles. It would have sounded insane. 99% of people would not have done that. But if you had put $50,000 down on Tesla back in 2005 or whatever, you would be a multimillionaire right now. So that's how you make money. That's how you make money. That's how you do it. That's what I'm looking for. I suspect the next opportunity will arise in the cryptocurrency space. The next 100x financial opportunity that I will see, that I will be aware of, will occur somewhere in the Ethereum ecosystem. That's how I see it. Our financial institutions are going to change dramatically over the coming years. Dramatically, especially as inflation occurs in the dollar. We're going to face an event where the dollar is going to become worthless at some point here. Like this, if you're afraid of the future, this should really be the thing. This is exactly what happened in World War II. The dollar's going to be inflating. Trump is going to give a speech. Everybody's going to need something new. They're going to be like, we cannot do Biden anymore. We need something else. Trump is going to arise and provide the solution. He's going to be like, it's me. I am the answer. And World War III is going to start, and then we're going to be in a battle with China and Russia. And, you know, like this is the darkness. That's the darkness. So it turns out, you know, things like cryptocurrency might be our answer. It'll just take power away from the Fed, from the central government. That's what we need. We need to, as my brother would say, we need to fractionate. We need less central authority. But what do I know? I'm just a guy out in the woods. I don't know anything. Okay, I should probably end this video. I'm gonna go find Dusty and then I'm gonna end this. He's up the hill. It's 95% humidity today. Isn't that ridiculous? What's good about that is that the temperature is more stable when it's more humid. I think the water in the air keeps the temperature more stable. That's how I understand it. Yeah, I don't think people realize when they watch these types of videos that they can't distinguish between what I'm doing and something like what Tucker Carlson would be doing or something, right? Like Tucker Carlson does the same thing I do, technically. He starts talking and then he talks for an hour and then he stops. But he has a team of writers and editors and graphic artists that are putting things on the screen, and you know, they do stop for commercial breaks. But you know, I think it's hard as a viewer, as a consumer of this kind of media, to sort of mentally distinguish from the fact that I don't have a team of writers, and that I'm doing this in one take, and that I will be making mistakes and saying things that I don't necessarily believe, just by accident, just from talking too fast. You know, it's hard to not make mistakes like this, right? This is why we need to enter a post-woke age where I can be forgiven for my mistakes. If I say something wrong, and there needs to be like a level of forgiveness. We need to mature as internet users, as a society. I gotta organize my house today. Today is a cleanup day. Clean up, organize, prepare. I got a buddy coming next week from Los Angeles, coming to visit. Maybe I'll include him in this video. I don't know if he'll want to show up in my YouTube channel. He does not know it exists. Nobody that I know previously to starting this knows that this channel exists. I actually want to make a video. I'm probably going to make a video about Super Smash Bros. At some point. Because, like I've said, there's a community that I was involved in that I was sort of canceled from. And now I've laid out all of my opinions for real on this video channel, right? So if they find me, if they sort of catch wind that I exist here, I imagine some of them will share some of these videos with each other to make fun of me. Because they are very woke. There's a concentration of woke people there. They think that white people are the problem. They think that you can't be racist against a white person. You know, they're as woke as it gets. There's a concentration of wokeness in this one community. Because it's a young community and very internet based. And the combination of being young and being mainly online means that there is somehow a stronger influence of whatever it is. That which cancels is concentrated there. That which cancels. Definitely concentrated in that community. And they had a good time canceling me. They loved it. They fucking loved it. People writing tweets about me. This one dude that I had him stay at my apartment for a day and a half. He was from Northern California. He came down to LA for a tournament. He posted on Facebook, hey, can I stay at somebody's apartment? I said, yeah, sure. Come stay at my apartment. And we hung out, we drank, we played some video games. We drove to the tournament, hung out. I let him stay overnight. You know, I didn't know the guy till that day. And of course, some number of months later, I am outed as a transphobe. And this guy posts a tweet just like roasting me, just like annihilating me on Twitter. And I just was like, wow. You know, I just responded to his tweet saying, I thought we were friends, period. And, well, you know, I can't really completely blame people. You get social media attention. If you write a tweet blasting the transphobe, you'll get a bunch of likes. That's how you do it. People like likes, they like engagement, they like attention. Why do you think I'm doing this channel, right? So, can't fully blame people, but also fuck those people. Fuck the woke people, you know? It's people that love to cancel. Oh my god, that guy's a transphobe. Matt Denny likes to beat up transgender people. Is that really what they think? Like, so many of these people met me. I ran one of these tournaments where we were very LGBT friendly when I was running these tournaments. Very, like almost obnoxiously so. It's Los Angeles. You can't not run a thing and be LGBT friendly. Right? You can't. I mean, I was clearly on board with everything they wanted. I was clearly accepting of everything. I just don't think that a trans woman is literally a woman. I don't want to say it. I won't say it. Alright, I found Dusty. I'm gonna end this video with a little bit of Dusty. Hey buddy. How you doing? Also, for those who cared, I'm not leaving this out. Dusty Busty. Do cats normally do this? This is the thing cats always do, is they gotta attack your arm. Alright, there's your content. Happy Friday. Today is December 17th, 2021, and I'm done. Bye.